All right, so here I am with the brush tool. I'm going to edit my blob brush a little bit to be less sensitive to pressure. And I can keep it the same kind of size, but then I just limit its ability to vary. Not completely, but a lot less. That'll help me get more even lines here. There we go. So even though I have it set on ultimate smooth, it's still hard to draw a straight line sometimes, especially at weird angles. Now, if I wanted it to just work exactly, because that's working and it looks hand done, but you know what? I'm realizing I want them all to go to the center of the image. So maybe I should take advantage of what Illustrator can do. And here I'm going to find kind of the visual center. And I'm going to run my lines from that visual center. So I'm not going to delete what I did, but I'm going to make a new layer and I'm going to approach it with line tools. Basically making use of the pen in a way that makes a lot of sense. So what happened to my guide? Let's get to the center. There we go. And so I want to go to where these intersect, and I'm going to start there, and I'm going to go straight down, and then back up. And I'm going to go straight down. I should make sure all of these are, pretty sure they are, but all my other layers are locked. Yep. And then straight up. And then straight back down until it's a closed path. So for those of you studying 2-point or 1-point perspective, I just want everything to go towards the same central point. And I know I wasn't doing that by hand. So I'm making use of the guides here. And then actually it should be pretty simple for me to just cut it out the way I want it. Now, because I'm using the pen tool, I am doing these as strokes, which means I can thicken them and make them fairly uniform. But because I don't want them to connect, you see how I have to go over them twice because I have to make each one a closed path. And it allows me to connect anchors to anchors. I'm only going to do it on 1/2 because then I can just flip them. At least that's the plan. And I'm trying to connect them to the inside anchor of this line, but I don't know if I'm getting that exactly right. But ultimately, these angles should be a little bit more visually appealing. We shall see. All right. So that way of breaking them up, yeah, that works pretty well. Now, how can I get it so it's just showing on this ridge. Well, I'm going to duplicate it just so I don't mess it up. And I'm going to play first, before I duplicate it, with its size. So how thick do I want those lines? That looks pretty good. Yeah, I don't think I want it to be anything other than just uniform. And I like it, yeah, just straightforward. So there we go. Or maybe one less. So now I am going to select all of that, copy it, lock it, turn it off, make a new layer, paste in place. And now I will use the eraser tool to cut them off. I just want to cut them off inside the line that I'm overlapping. So what that does, you know what, before I do that, haha, very smart. So I don't have to have all those hard edges to deal with. I'm going to select them, and I'm going to, this is what I recommend with all of your strokes. Go to Object, Path, Outline Stroke. So now when I use the eraser tool, it will match the curve where I cut them, especially where my lines are really thin. That's the biggest problem with strokes, is how they resolve themselves at the corners. So by outlining them, turning them into filled paths, it's not hard at all to then individually select and delete them, because they've been cut off. Voila. Now, people who really love digital art, and especially those who like CAD and Illustrator and these vector-based programs, they enjoy the problem-solving aspects of it. And there's certainly a lot of those. Like just thinking, how am I going to solve this issue? What workflow would make most sense? And of course, you get better and better at it as you do the same sorts of jobs over and over. The reason I like teaching it and doing these demos always in a different way is it keeps me interested in all these creative solutions for doing something. And that might lead to an idea I use in my professional work, or a new technique. Okay, so now that I have all of those, and I have them the weight I want, I have them outlined in the place I want, how do I flip them? I select them all, copy them, lock them, new layer, edit, paste in place. Notice I use a lot of organizational layers. That's just my way of keeping things straight. Reflect it. And then I'm just using the arrow keys to make sure it doesn't move vertically at all. But there are guides within Illustrator that help with that as well. And the only bar that's going to match is that center one at the bottom. But if I can get that dead on, then everything will match side to side. All right, there we go. Good place for me to save it. And now I get to outline my bird on the inside. And what tools do I like the best? I'm probably going to use the blob brush tool. But maybe I want my lines to be a little bit more intricate. Well, that's a pretty good thickness. If I wanted my lines to be able to be thinner, I could select everything and just make it bigger. And then the blob brush settings would stay within the same point range, but I'd be working on a bigger sketch. So I'd have more technical lines. Because size doesn't really matter in terms of resolution, what does matter is these tool settings that we're constantly picking. And remember, I set it so it doesn't taper as much. So these are all things that you can work with. And because I'm on the blob brush, I can tackle things a few times and it will all make it the same shape. Which is a feature I very much appreciate. Trying to decide if I actually want the wing to be separated or not. Yeah, I might as well. Now each shape I outline, oh, it's getting too thick. Each shape I outline is going to become a place for a local color selection. Like these belly feathers here. See, by limiting it too much, it just loses all character. Let's try 5 points. Variation of 3. And if I ever wanted to thicken lines, I could do that easily simply by adding a stroke to them and then converting the whole thing into an outline again. Turn off my sketch, see what it looks like. So I wanted to also suggest that tiger's head. So I think I do want to separate the feet and make that more like a nose. Sloppy as anything. All right, now the eyes, very important. So these are kind of the focal point of that tiger shape. And so this I'm going to match side to side with symmetry. I'm going to try to really use the thick and thin of the blob brush to make it as dramatic as possible and to read clearly. Again, I'm up against some pretty hard angles here, so I'll have to fix them after. And the benefit of the blob brush is it makes it all one. Okay, so now let me fix those. Got out of control pretty quick. All right, so now I make this wing cool. I'm going to use the pencil tool. And once I clean that up, I can use it on the other side as well.